All right, so I want to introduce you guys to my mom. Um, Her name is. You can't do that, man. What are you doing? What are you doing?
He wants to sit with me.
I don't know how to edit this out, so whatever you guys see, just deal with it. Anyways, so oh man, did it die? I think it was dying. All right, it is what it is. So, I was trying to record this on my camcorder, but it just died. So now I'm recording this on my Apple iPhone. This is my mom. Her name is Rochelle Thomas, and I'm doing this project for a journey for me to talk about my roots and know more about my family and other people's families about either being here in America, the United States, or immigrating to America. So I'll just give you guys a quick summary of my mom's life. Um, Her family, half of her family comes from Barbados and St. Vincent, which is in the West Indies. It was her great grandfather and her great grandmother who married. They came to the U.S. in 1915 and they got married the next year in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They had do you know how many kids your grandparents had?
I think 6 or 7 and one died.
So I printed up some information about your family, and you probably already know some. My mom had told me about our West Indian roots a long time ago. I was always telling everyone I was West Indian, but I'm more than that. And so is my mom. So here is from Ancestry.com. Is her great grandfather who immigrated to uh, Cambridge, Massachusetts from St. Vincent and married his wife, Mildred Waithe. And my great grandfather's name is Decent Ambrose. So I'll just give you a brief story. He was born July 10th, 1890, in Union, Grenadines, St. Vincent. He is the son of Ellen. That's all I got so far. I'm still researching that side of my family. He married Mildred Elora Ambrose on October 21st, 1917, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they had six children um, in 16 years. So within those 16 years of their marriage, they had 6 children. He died in 1961 of March at the age of 70, and I believe 5 years before his wife died, Mildred, my great grandmother, my mom's grandmother. And they're both currently buried in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They had a son who also passed away before both of them, actually. No, you're not doing that with those pants. Take those down like that. They both, my great uncle, I think his name was, I forgot his name, but my great uncle had passed away when he was 20 years old. He's also buried in Cambridge, Massachusetts, along with, I think his name was Enoch Ambrose. He's buried in Cambridge. They did have a newborn who only lived for like a day or a month. He's buried in Cambridge. Um, and yeah, so that's all that's currently buried right now in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's a brief summary of my mom's West Indian roots. And her father, whose family is from Georgia and Alabama, they eventually came up to Boston around the early 1900s. And they had about 9 children, and one of them is my mom's father. So I wanted you guys to know a little bit more about my mom without me doing all the talking, and I'll interfere and ask some other questions here and there. But I wanted to ask you, Mommy, where did you grow up, and what was it like at that time?
I grew up in Dorchester, Massachusetts, Shafter Street. And what it was like is when we moved to, first we were on Brunswick Street in Roxbury. I was there for a year, and then we moved to Shafter Street, and I was there until I moved out. And it was a very nice neighborhood. We had a great time. We played out in the street. We had fun. It was also the time of civil rights, and it was the time when JFK died and Martin Luther King died, and there were riots. I never experienced the riot aspect, but I heard about it, and then there was Vietnam, and so
I want to stop you. So you said we um growing up, you grew up with a different type of family. Um and a lot of people don't understand that there are things uh called foster care. So you grew up with another family by the name of Louise Corbin and Milton Corbin, um, who took you in over there, Interville,
Brunswick Street.
Brunswick Street, which is in Roxbury. Roxbury and Dorchester, for those who watches this, is a towns or neighborhoods in Boston, but a lot of people just know it as the neighborhoods. You can still say I'm from Boston, but people know you as Dorchester, Roxbury. So my mom was in foster care with her brother, who I haven't met yet. I'm still trying to find information about him, where he's located. So she grew up in that area of Roxbury, and at that time, if you can remember, I know you were young, but were you young enough to remember the different type of races? Was it just copper colored, melanated, brown skinned people, so called black, or was it mixed? Was it white people? Was it people from other countries, or was it just predominantly those within the United States?
When we moved into our neighborhood, it was mixed. It was white and black, and
Okay,
then it became predominantly black.
okay. Um,
I don't mean to interrupt the interview. Can I go in your prayer room?
Yes,
Yeah.
so when so you grew up, you were born in 1960, and you mentioned JFK, you mentioned the civil rights. Um, you were young at the time when the civil rights came out. Well, not came out, but you were just a kid when the whole discussion of civil rights was a thing. What do you know about the civil rights? What was told to you, and do you do you think it made any changes for you right now?
changes. I didn't have any issues. So as far as being who I am today and what was going on during the civil rights, I remember the marches. Um, I remember Vietnam. I remember there's an issue of color. There was a problem with color, but I wasn't ever directly impacted because I was always around black folk.
Mm-hmm.
So when I ever did come in contact with Caucasians, um, I didn't have an issue.
You talk about black folks, and with me on this journey of doing research about our family, the word black was a description for brown colored people. But in the 60s, you guys were known by numerous classifications. You had black, you had negro, you had colored, and then about 20 years later, you were known as African Americans. When you were growing up, what was the term that you guys typically use? Because I'm 41, so we're still using Black American or Black people. What was the term that you guys were using?
Black.
And for you know, did you ever see any difference with the term colored or Negro with the word Black? Did you notice like, oh well, we're not being called Negro anymore or colored anymore? Was that term ever used on you, if you can remember?
The word colored, COL, was on my birth certificate. So when I went to get my birth certificate and I saw COL, I was shocked that they were still using that word. And I was 16. I saw that, but at that time we were still saying black.
Okay. Um, the Black Panther movement, and the whole Black Power thing. What was all that about? Was that around your era, or was that something that? Because I know you were born in 1960, but was that more so the 60s, or was that more so the 70s?
It was the 70s.
So were you considering or calling yourself a Black Panther, or was it certain people who were doing it? Was this an organization? Was it just a movement?
It was an organization, it was a movement basically out of California, where they were having the most trouble with police brutality. So they went about using the Constitution of bearing arms and protecting the neighborhood of Compton, I think it was. And so they were pretty much fed up with the police brutality going on there. And so the organization just spread out throughout the country.
So what did it do? What was their purpose?
Their purpose was number one, protecting the black people in the neighborhood. They were the first ones who started the food program, and the government copied it, calling it the USDA food program, but it was really the Black Panthers. The
You're
black
talking about SNAP, food stamps, or you're talking about WIC,
None of that. It was called USDA food, where you could go to a particular area and pick up food,
like a food pantry?
like a food pantry. But this was by the government. So you would have canned meat, cheese,
Mm.
I don't know what else kind of food, but they had food for those
I
who
I remember that because Auntie Beverly gave us a she gave you a can of peanut butter and it said USDA on it,
exactly.
and it was very hard.
Yes,
Like the probably like the worst peanut butter you could ever have.
exactly.
Like it felt like cheese, like thick like cheese, and you put it on bread and it would just break your bread. And it's not cheap bread,
It
you
rips your
know.
bread.
It would just
Yes,
rip your bread. So, and it was very oily, like very
yes.
oily at the top. So yeah, I remember that. So that was so it seemed like because she was a foster parent, it seemed like she was able to get that because you never had that by yourself. I've never seen that
No,
in our house.
I didn't apply for it. I don't know what you had to do to apply for it, but I think if you were on welfare or if you had government um, access, like if you were a foster parent. Back then, they didn't call it foster parent; they call it ward of the state. Children
Mm.
were wards of the state. But um, yeah, if you were taking care of children, you
Wards of the state. You never told me that
yes, that's what children were called, wards of the state,
as a foster kid.
as a foster child. Yes, you were a ward of the state because the state took care of you.
Wow.
So the parents would receive not only a check for taking care of the child, but they would receive medical assistance,
Mm.
which was called Medicaid.
Right. Well, we still have that. It's still called Medicaid. But for it's Medicaid is like the national name for it, but every state has a different name. So Florida has Florida State Health, Massachusetts is Mass Health. So it's still Medicaid,
Mm-hmm.
but no one just calls it that. Um, so so back to the Black Panthers. So you said that they were the first ones to establish this food pantry like
Yes.
program. And because I heard that they were the ones who established the WIC program. Well, they were the ones to do what WIC is doing now.
Exactly.
Women, infants, children
Yes.
program, which
Yes.
and they would do that. Now, were they doing that in Boston too?
Yes.
Okay.
It was throughout
Were
the country.
you ever a product of that? Did you ever receive help from the Black Panthers?
No, I was a child.
Okay. I only say that because they lasted for some time. So, did you ever deal with them? Did you ever see them? Did you ever walk or march with them?
No.
Okay. So, why do you think they got dismantled?
Because they were a threat to the um, government. The government felt that they were too radical or terrorists. They were labeled terrorists, and
So you heard of Fred Hampton?
No.
So Fred Hampton was a Black Panther. I think he was in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. It might be Pennsylvania, and they bombed or shot up. The police went up into his house and shot up everyone that was in there, but pretty much shot up him. And he was considered a Black Panther organizer or leader, such as Tupac's mother, um, Afeni Shakur, her sister Assata Shakur. Um, I think the guy who used to march with Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael. You
Mm-hmm.
ever heard of him?
Yes.
Okay, so uh, we would see these people marching, but I didn't think they actually did anything. I just thought they just did a lot of talking, and I thought their whole thing was to also represent, which was one of the biggest things because I found out we weren't, so-called Black people weren't allowed to use guns for a while, and they wanted to say the two-way rights is for everybody. And so one of the things that the Black Panthers was doing, from what I looked up, was to show that they should be able to walk around with guns. And that's what they were doing in California. I don't know if they were doing that out here in Boston.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Um, the parents that you lived with, Louise Corbin and Milton Corbin, what type of household was that? What do you remember growing up in that household?
I remember growing up where Christmas was always awesome because everybody who was in the house, and there were like, let me see, Michael, Malvina, Karen and Edward, that's four, me and Barry, that's six. So us six, we each had at Christmas a pile of toys. So everybody had their own pile, and that was always great. Um,
How was she with? Did she treat you as if you were her own?
yes, all of us were.
Okay. Um, did you ever have that feeling of growing up in another Black person household, like that's not my family? I don't know you guys. I'm gonna be separated. I don't know you. Or did you just feel like that was your family?
That was my family.
Um, as far as your siblings, because you had other siblings, did they grow up in the foster home with you?
No,
Okay, so it was
Me and Barry
just
did.
you and Uncle Bear. Okay, was your parents ever involved in your life?
Yes, they would come and visit and take us out.
Okay, um, with both of your parents being from two different cultures, one being from, well, your mom, both of your parents were born here, but your mom having the West Indian roots and your dad having roots from down south, what is the most part of, what can you remember that they told you about your, you know uh, your roots or their culture? What about them, of each family, that they ever tell you? Did they tell you anything about how it was for in Barbados, or did your dad ever talk to you about Georgia or Alabama or anything like that? Did they discuss anything to you about the past?
No,
Okay. Um, you told me that your dad told you that we were Indians. Did he specify what? Did he specify what?
Excuse me. I just sent that. Can I go out in the hallway?
yes,
Did your dad ever mention to you what tribe of Indians that we were from?
I believe Cherokee.
And when he would tell you this, did he tell you anything else with it, or he was just, that's all he would just say?
That's all he said.
Was there any conversation that would lead up to it, or did he just feel like he just had to tell you that?
Yeah, he just said we're Cherokee. We have some Cherokee.
Okay. But you never really hung with your father.
Um, we were brought to where he was. My mother would come over and take Barry and I out, and sometimes we would go to where my father was and visit him.
Okay. Okay. What type of jobs do you remember that your biological parents had, if you can remember?
I knew my father was a security guard and he worked as a bartender. I assume he was a bartender because that's where she brought us at a bar in Grove Hall to visit him.
So your mom brought you to the bar.
Hmm.
Was this at night or during the day?
It was more likely during the day.
Okay. What type of jobs did she have?
As far as I know, she worked. There's a candy factory in Cambridge,
Yep.
and she worked there.
Was it Nico or
I
Tootsie
think it was
Roll?
Nico. Yes,
Nico. Okay.
Nico, the
Okay.
one where Union.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because the one next to Union is Tootsie Roll.
It's Tootsie Roll now. It used to be Nico.
Nico was around the corner.
Yeah, but it was also Nico.
Oh. Okay.
Hmm.
Your parents that took you and Uncle Barry in, what jobs that they have?
Ma was a entrepreneur. She had her own daycare centers for a while. Then she went back to school and graduated from Harvard. She received a scholarship to go to Harvard. And during the civil rights movement, she received the scholarship from Harvard because Harvard felt it wanted to do its part for the black community, black people. So those who applied during that movement, they were automatically granted the scholarship.
Now, what's the civil rights movement? What does that? What is that?
Black people were then fighting for their rights to do what white people had the opportunity to do. So basically, there was more of the movement in the South. That same thing of black only, white only was still in effect during the 60s and the maybe Jim Crow, it was Jim Crow. So it probably lasted a good while in the South, more so than in the North. But in the North, they were fighting for still equal rights and things like Jim Crow.
So now, when you say equal rights, um, are you saying that? Because I know we all know, for those who are watching this, we all know what we were told as children. Black people couldn't go to the white only bathrooms and the white only this and the white only that. Were there not black businesses? People of our skin complexion creating their own businesses to avoid that issue of
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, you have Ebony Jet Johnson Publishing. So you have Black Enterprise. So there were a lot of black companies
What about here in Boston?
in Boston. I don't know. Oh, the Banner, but I don't know who owned the Banner. But the Banner newspaper focused on the community of the black race of Mattapan, Dorchester. They mainly reported on the
So were there any businesses such as that you can remember? Because
your local corner store was considered a black business.
okay,
The
laundromats.
cleaners,
Yep.
laundromats, yeah,
Okay. So why did you guys feel as though you needed the civil rights if people had their own things?
because there were issues where black people, if they wanted to buy a home in another neighborhood outside of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Rosendale, Hyde Park, the banks were gerrymandering, meaning they only made sure black people, when they bought, when they applied for loans, they only stayed in that area, and they weren't allowed to, so to speak, um, get a loan to live out in other areas outside, like Milton, Stoughton, Brookline, Newton, where it's predominantly white. And so there was a lot of gerrymandering going on. There was a lot of the jobs that black people wanted to apply for, they weren't, interviewed for. So that's where affirmative action came in, not because we required it or asked for it,
Mhm.
but the government felt, okay, since white people won't hire the black people, we're going to have to force them to hire them, you
So
know.